Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Portal to Ascension interview show. We are live on the Portal to Ascension network. I'm your host, Joan of Angels. And guys, we have an amazing, amazing event today because we are going to be diving deep into the shadow people, into time travel with our host of the Alaskan Triangle TV show, Mike Ricksecker. So I'm going to tell you about him in just a moment, and a little bit about our upcoming Portal to Ascension show, which is actually called the Paranormal Magic Folklore Show. So a bit about Mike before we talk about the upcoming show. Mike Ricksecker is the author of the Amazon best-selling A Walk in the Shadows, A Complete Guide to Shadow People, 8 historic paranormal books, and the esoteric tome, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. I'm telling you, we're really in for a treat. And as I'm reading this, let us know where you're from, by the way, around the world. Mike has appeared on multiple television shows and programs as a paranormal historian, including Travel Channel's The Alaska Triangle, Discovery's Fright Club, Animal Planet's The Haunted, Bio Channel's My Ghost Story, and Ren TV, Russia's Mysteries of Mankind. Mike also produces his own internet supernatural-based shows on the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel and is the producer and director of the docuseries The Shadow Dimension, available on several streaming platforms. And he, as I said, he is going to be on the upcoming Paranormal, what did we have it called? The Paranormal Magic Folklore Conference, and we'll share that screen right now for a moment to show you a bit about it. We can share Mike too, but let's take a look at what's going on that event, Tina Marie. So if you can pull that up for us, the show itself, we'll get that on the screen. Or if not, we'll put Mike back up on the screen and then we'll show it. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So here we go, guys. The Paranormal Magic and Ancient Folklore Conference. And I think this is a one of a kind. It's the first time that we are doing it. And we're very, very excited that we're going to be bringing Mike onto the show. Tina will post the links in it. And we hope to see you all there, guys, for that program. Thank you so much, Tina Marie. So now I'm happy to introduce you all to Mike. Hello there.
Hi, Joan. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
I wish I didn't need my glasses in the paranormal world. We are so happy to have you here, Mike.
Thank you.
So what you're doing is very, very unique and interesting. And my first question to you, I just really want to know, how did you get involved in all of this, like the paranormal world? Were you always this way? Was it a surprise? Like, what happened?
Well, I'm an experiencer.
But tell us about the shadow people then. I'm assuming you've done a lot of research on it now. Mm-hmm. You've been investigating. And so what do you think they are, or where do they come from?
Well, that's a whole can of worms.
And do you think some of these shadows, then, I know they're interdimensional beings. Do you think they're departed loved ones or ghosts, or are they really their own class of interdimensional beings?
Yeah, some are departed loved ones. True shadow person is an interdimensional being, but some of these shadows that we see are actually human spirits. You do hear some cases in which somebody will say, well, this shadow entered my room, but it was my Aunt Jane or somebody like that. What
does that mean today? So what do you actually do now? Do you investigate? And how does that look like? What does this look like? What is your life doing all this then involved? Called in a UFO the other night, and that was quite powerful. First time I actually ever successfully called in a UFO. And it was so profound that the UFO, someone asked me if I can call in a UFO. I hadn't done it before, and I said yes. And as I called in that UFO, I followed the instructions that they gave me. I had us do a process of really connecting and then raising our vibrational frequency to a very, very high level, and I had us all projecting out of our bodies. So we were at the same We were a few thousand feet in the sky, which was actually around the same height as the UFO that came by. So the UFO came by. I heard a voice that said, "Open your eyes. Tell everyone to open their eyes." And I'm like going, "That's too soon. No, no, it's too soon." But I opened my eyes and I had trusted so much that I shouted to the group, "Okay, everyone, open your eyes." We looked up and oh my God, it's a good thing I opened my eyes right then, because right above us, kind of above in here, like kind of that far, a couple of thousand feet ahead, there was a light that came in and it sort of stuck like this, twinkled overhead. I swear everyone saw it. I thought it was a shooting star at first, but it slowed down significantly. And then it shot off. It kind of sent out a sparkle of gold dust, and then it shot off like a shooting star.
When I was about 15, when I first knew that this was going to be something that was going to be a part of me for the rest of my life, my friend David and I were at our friend Lori's house. We're just teenagers shooting the breeze, that sort of thing. And Lori suddenly said, "I think my house is haunted." And it's like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. We're going to hear some ghost stories. And she does delve into some different things that are going on around the house. There's old family cemetery in the backyard, that sort of thing. Her big concern was that in her bedroom upstairs, she couldn't ever keep anything tacked up on this one wall. We're kids, so posters, things like that would be like, maybe an hour, a day, a week later, or whatever, things would always fall down off this wall. So she had the haunted wall. So we're going to go upstairs and we're going to investigate, having no idea that that's what we're actually doing. So we go into her room and she's telling us some more stories. We're looking at the wall. And my friend David, I didn't realize this about him at the time. He was a very, very sensitive guy. And he put his hand flat to the wall like that. And all of a sudden, he turned this bright, bright red and started sweating profusely. I'm looking at David like, oh my gosh, what in the world's going on with my friend? I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. And so he starts going like wall to wall in the house, trying to find the different quote unquote hot spots around the home. And that was the moment that I knew that, yeah, and I'd already had those experiences when I was younger, but that was the moment that I knew that this is absolutely fascinating. Somehow, some way, shape, or form, I'm going to be involved with this for the rest of my life.
Voice, by the way, is phenomenal. Listening to you now on my headset, I can see why you do a lot of talk shows and why you're a host. And I swear, I think it's your voice that got you into the paranormal.
Because well, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate that.
Well, that's all I could go with for a minute. Okay, so that led you then into a life of investigating. Mm-hmm. Do you investigate like beyond the shadow people? What else comes together with your investigations?
I mean, a lot of different things. I mean, back in the day, we would investigate all kinds of different paranormal phenomena, whether it was just, typical historic haunting. We would do residential cases where we were helping families. But lately my research has taken me more into the esoteric side of things. So in a couple of weeks here, I'll be going to Ireland. Last year, I went to Egypt. I'll be going back to Egypt again next year. So Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour for those that are interested. So that's where a lot of my research has brought me to, because as I dive deeper into this phenomena, I'm finding all of these connections. The paranormal, ghosts, hauntings, all that is just really the tip of the iceberg. You're finding connections back into ancient history. I actually have a nice little section within my book, A Walk in the Shadows, where it talks about shadow phenomena back in ancient history. But then we see the connections, like we were talking about before, to extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, and all these other things. All these things around the universe are all connected to each other. And that's what's really fascinating me now.
So you've taken the deep dive now into this kind of paranormal world and gone into the ascension, the kind of the galactic energies, the vibrational frequency aspects of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it all comes down to, resonance, frequency, vibration. Yeah, I mentioned before that that incident that we had with the rolling black smoke morphing into the apparition of a little girl. And what was interesting about that moment is that we all saw the girl a little bit differently, where I saw her like fully formed from her head down to about her knees, and then she dissipated away. And others saw her fully formed from the feet on up, and then she started to dissipate away toward the head. And of course, the question becomes, why is that? Why do we all see her a little bit differently? Well, the human body, it has a frequency range, and everybody is a little bit different. And the entity that we were observing also has its own frequency range that it's vibrating within. So, um, my energy might not be on exactly the same frequency as hers, but enough that I can actually see it, and so forth with everybody else that was there. But because we all have our own personal resonance that vibrates at a different frequency, we all saw her a little bit differently. So that's why, like, sometimes on paranormal investigations, somebody will see something. Oh, hey, did you see that? And the other person's like, no, didn't see it at all. So it all comes down to that.
It's the same thing with angel sightings.
Mhm.
Never forget, my boyfriend woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "Oh my God, Archangel Raphael is in the room. He's huge. He's big and golden." And honestly, I felt dense because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. And they're in the room, and yet I didn't have the eyes to see it. So I do get everyone
Right.
sees it. Do you think that it's your vibrational frequency that's attracting the different energies? And are you attracting other energies besides the shadow people now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think there are people that act like a beacon because I do see and experience a lot of different things. I think, sure, different energies are drawn to me. But I also believe that our energy can become, in tune to specific types of other energies. So, like when it comes to the shadows, like some people will say, I see more shadows and apparitions. Other people see more apparitions and shadows. And then the question becomes, why? Well, I think that because several of my first paranormal experiences happened to be with shadow entities, I think my own personal energy became in tune to that type of frequency and vibration, so that when something like that is in the room, my body just naturally tunes in. It's like, oh, there it is. I see it. Now, sometimes I will see an apparition too, but it's not as frequent because my body is not as in tune to the vibration and frequency and resonance of an apparition as it is something like a shadow.
Or an extraterrestrial or
Or
an
an
angel,
extraterrestrial.
say?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, because
so
each of those
another.
entities have their own, resonance and vibration. Yeah.
No, they do, and I found it very, very interesting. While you were gone, I was telling everyone of the UFO sighting that we had the other night because I called in a UFO, and my guide said, "Well, raise everyone's vibration up to the height and level of the ETs." So that's what I did, and it worked. And it worked because we all left our body and kind of traveled up.
Mhm.
And so I know some of these sightings are frequency. So what attracts you now then to Egypt, and now what are you exploring personally now in these trips?
Yeah, with Egypt, their whole philosophy had to do with raising the energy and vibration of the civilization. They were very, very much interested in their life afterlife, where they would go, once they were done in this world. But they also looked at it from a very practical point of view too, raise the energy of the civilization so our crops will grow better and things like that. So that was everything was very, very integrated. But I'm also very interested in the different types of technology that they used back then, portals, stargates, that sort of thing. How were they using the earth energy back then to be able to access these other realms and in different states of being? How are they able to access these different worlds and dimensions? Where you look at something like Hatshepsut's temple, which has Stargate emblazoned all over it. The whole structure was set up as you walk up the stairs. You basically had the serpents alongside you that represented the energy. You go back into what they called the Holy of Holies, and everything back within that structure is set up with. First of all, it says Stargate right on the side of the wall. But then as you go inside, you actually have this fantastic symbolism of stars within a cartouche, which you see almost nowhere else. They also had a small pyramid off to the side. And if you subscribe to the idea that some of these pyramids were actually power plants, well, then you have your power source for powering up the whole Stargate. So,
The whole thing.
yeah. So all of that is really, really fascinating to me. And we'll be exploring that in February.
I'm assuming we'll be able to see film of that. Do you think you're going to see any shadow people out, in the pyramids? I mean, seriously, because I see that you're calling in other vibrations. Do you think the shadow people are there?
There's definitely an interesting energy to the Great Pyramid. We spent 2 hours within the Great Pyramid, just our little group, last summer on the summer solstice, which was absolutely amazing to be able to get in
Astounding,
there
right?
on that day. Yeah, the energy was off the chart. I think because I was just so amped up and excited about being within the pyramid at that point in time. I didn't witness any shadows that day. I was just, I was like a kid in a candy store. Oh, look at this, look at that, and feeling these different energies. So next time I go, I'll be a little bit more cognizant of things going on around me. But all that said, the the ancient Egyptians did believe in shadows, just from a little bit of a different point of view than we look at it today. So, they believed in 7 different parts of the soul. And one of those was the Kabit, or the shadow. And that and the Ka would stay here on Earth after death,
Right.
while the rest of the parts of the soul would go on to the constellation of Orion. And the Ka would eventually make its way there, but the shadow would still remain here on Earth. And you see some interesting depictions, like in the tomb of Arenifer in the Theban necropolis. He was a noble, but they have the depiction of the shadow there staying by the tomb while you have the bobbirds, flying off. So it's very, very interesting how they thought of shadows.
That is very, very interesting. So the soul leaves, but the shadow kind of stays.
Right.
And or a signature, maybe it's like a signature. And is that true for everyone or just the Egyptians who ascended?
Oh, no, this was, you see this throughout a lot of different cultures. Uh,
Hmm.
some Native American cultures here, like one that I mentioned within my book specifically, the Choctaw. Now, they believed in 2 parts of the soul, not 7. So you would have one part of the soul that would go off to the land of the ghosts after death, and then you had the other part, uh, which would stay here on Earth as a shadow, again, to roam around. And it's interesting how you see some of these different connections between Egypt and other cultures around the world, some that were not supposed to have connections at all. And you're seeing this play out, which is very, very intriguing.
Well, I have a theory that really we're all this. There was one major civilization of which many of our civilizations were a part of. It's a whole forbidden history, but we'll see how that comes about. So, Mike, are you still working with the Alaskan Triangle?
Absolutely. That was my most recent book that came out, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. We had the television show, lasted 2 seasons. Have not yet heard about a third, but I know it's been a very popular show. So fingers crossed that we get a third season for that. And that was a real treat to get to work on, because I was stationed there when I was a member of the United States Air Force when I was much younger, 92 to 95. And so I got to go back up to Alaska and explore some of my old haunts. And they put me on the side of a mountain with some dowsing rods, trying to find some of the different telluric currents and energy up there, which fortunately we did. It was kind of a shot in the dark, but it worked. So that was fascinating to get to explore again and research the area.
So you're using dowsing rods on some of your explorations?
Yeah.
I love dowsing rods.
Right, exactly. A lot of people have kind of scoffed at dowsing rods these days it's because of YouTube and things like that, where people will go on to something like that and they'll fake something. Um, so people kind of scoff at the idea of dowsing rods because, well, you could be faking that, but you know, I, I'm not going to fake something to myself, and they really work, even from just a practical purpose. If you're not even looking for like earth energy or spirits or whatever, just from a practical purpose, surveyors will use them to try to find pipes. My dad, who really doesn't believe in the paranormal or supernatural at all, other than we go somewhere after death. Um, he told me a story one time of being out in my grandparents' backyard, and there was an old drain somewhere there in the ground that they needed to find. And he went out there with a couple of copper wires, used them as dowsing rods, and sure enough, found the thing. So from a practical purpose, dowsing rods absolutely work. And up there in Alaska, we were filming for the television show, and they had me, talking about a variety of different topics, and they wanted to do some experimentation on Flat Top Mountain. So we had the EMF detectors out there, try to see if we can see or find any electrical currents, and that worked okay. But the rods, as I'm walking across the face of the mountain, there's this one area where they would hit. It was a significant pickup. And so, walked back and forth across that several times, like, okay, this is a spot right here. So then I decided to take the rods up and down the mountain to see if I could draw a line. And sure enough, I did. So somewhere across the top of Flat Top Mountain, I drew a line all the way down into Anchorage. So it's like, okay, here's one of those telluric currents, or like people call them ley lines, that I can draw from Flat Top Mountain all the way into Anchorage.
Very, very interesting. I as you're talking, I kind of see you walking around with those dowsing rods. I love those rods, and I've trained with them myself. So this is very, very interesting. So what are you actually working on right now? You're going to Ireland, right? Are you going to be dowsing? Are you looking for ghosts? Are you shadow people?
There's a lot of different things. Yeah, I mean, it's, we're touring a lot of the old castles. We're going to some of the old stone circles, like Drawbeg stone circles, and some others, which is, any of those old, ancient sites of power are absolutely fascinating to me, because the ancients knew how to, tap into that earth energy and be able to use it for all different purposes, whether it's healing or entering altered states of consciousness, portals, things like that. So we will be looking for some things like that. I'm also interested in fairy lore. So I'm working on Shadow Dimension Season 2, and there's a location in New York called Hinsdale House. It's a very haunted location, but it's also on Native American land, or old Native American land. And the energy there at the house, where people see a lot of shadow phenomena, these sorts of things, is very different than what's out in the woods. And when we've been out in the woods, we have seen these blue fairy lights just come down out of the woods. And people say, well, maybe it's fireflies. Like, well, this is September in New York. There are blue fireflies, but you would find those down in the Carolinas in June. So it weren't those. So fairy lore is something that I'm also interested in, that we'll explore in Ireland. And that's Shadow Dimension Season 2. I'm also going to be featuring Egypt in Shadow Dimension Season 2. But I'm in the middle of working on a book called Connecting the Universe. So I have a website. It's an online learning platform called connecteduniverseportal.com. And so we were talking earlier about everything in the universe being connected, and that's what this book is about.
So it's actually all your research kind of coming together for your next level of consciousness, what I hear. And I did see you're going to really see fairies, and you might even capture one on camera. I don't know. I just feel like you're really definitely going to see the little people. And I did have an experience where I got out of my car one day. I was in Marin County, and I looked up, and there was a fae person, and with green hat, green, the arrows were in a green arrow bag, and the fae looked at me, and I looked at her, and we both went into shock. It was like, and then she disappeared. But it was a highlight of my life. And I just feel like you may see some of these people. So what are you going to be talking about for us at Portal to Ascension? I know everyone wants to know that.
Right. Yeah. Portal to Ascension. I'm actually going to give my full presentation on the shadow person phenomenon. I say full presentation, but I have an entire class that I do on this. It's several hours long. So I break this down into an hour long presentation on, get into different types of shadow phenomenon, the history behind that. So we mentioned a little bit about, ancient Egypt. There's more. I get into the whole sleep paralysis aspect, and then I explore, okay, what could they possibly be? Interdimensional beings, ETs, a variety of different possibilities as to when you see a shadow, okay, what is it? And so dive into that as well.
I'm thinking about that. That sounds very, very interesting and definitely exciting to listen to, for sure. So I really appreciate what we're talking about. I think you're going to have a fantastic time in Ireland. I think we're really lucky to have you to be on our program as well. And he's like, what do you think is? I have one last question for you, which is, what do you think has been going on, and does it, on the planet? Does it interact with these shadow people? Do you have a feeling of where all this is going? Why we're seeing this all now?
Yeah. There's a lot of mixed energy on the planet right now. It's been a very confusing time, I think, for a lot of people. You kind of have these dueling energies, and it seems to all be just exploding in front of us right now. I know that from when I've done hypnosis sessions, that a lot of these shadows are, and they're not just just a creepy shadow or whatever. These are sentient beings from somewhere else. So what I call a true shadow person that come from another plane of existence. They're very interested in humanity. They come and they watch and observe us. Sometimes get a glimpse of them, and some are benevolent that will help us. Most are just benign. They're neither good nor bad. They're just kind of watching and observing. And it's one of those where it's like, please, can you offer some assistance here, give us some wisdom so we can get through this time.
And do they offer wisdom? Do they have that?
Well,
because you said they're sentient.
Yeah, the ones that I call, true shadow people are, because others are just like a time slip. Like you're actually witnessing another moment in time play out from the past or from the future. And, there may actually be some interaction there. And that's a whole nother fascinating topic to get into. But yeah, some actually are benevolent. And like, for example, quick story here. So there was a woman when her child was very young. He was very ill, and she kept seeing. And they were going to the doctors, they were going to the hospital, and they thought it was one particular illness, and they're trying to treat for that, but it wasn't working. She kept seeing this shadow walk into her son's bedroom quite often. She thought it was a harbinger of death. She's like, "This is the sign that he's not going to make it." So then there's one particular time that they're at the doctor's and they're about to run through all the same tests again. All of a sudden, the doctor turns his head as if somebody's whispering into his ear. And he turns back around and says, "You know what? Let's try these other tests." And they went ahead and they ran those other tests, discovered that the illness was actually something else. And they were able to treat it, and the boy was able to recover. Never saw the shadow entity again. And this woman attributes that it was actually the shadow entity, even though they couldn't see it there in the doctor's office, that because it had become intimately familiar with the boy, that it actually came with him to the doctors and told the doctors to run these different tests because it was this other illness.
So the doctor actually stopped as if he was listening to something. And did he say ultimately like something? Because that's very profound that he listened, actually.
Yeah, he didn't come out and say somebody whispered in my ear, but he turned his head as if somebody was whispering in his ear because he stopped and paused, turned his head to listen, and then he turned back around and told the family, "We're going to do this other stuff."
Okay, that gives me so much hope. It really does. It really does. So they have an ability to also be a positive force, nothing to be so afraid of, even if they're like a shadow. I think what we're going to do is we'll put the program back up, and I think maybe we should have you read it a little bit because it's so tiny on my cell phone, I can't actually see the words.
Oh, okay, sure. So you want me to read this off?
Yeah, read it off and tell us about the program.
Yeah. This is July 10th. What did we actually name the thing? I don't.
Oh, I have the name. It's Paranormal Magic.
There it is. Paranormal Magic and Ancient Folklore Conference. Yes, Sunday, July 10th, 2022. Starts at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Enter the realm of the paranormal, where we will show that this otherworldly realm is normal reality. Is magic real, and could it just be a science that we have not been figured out yet? I think that was worded a little off, but it's all right. What are we able to create and manifest utilizing our own energy and innate magic abilities? We can learn much from the ancient civilizations that existed before us on how to live in harmony and what are the origins of humanity. Explore ancient folklore and travel to faraway lands in the distant past to reclaim pieces of your own identity as a human on Earth. Join us for this all-day conference so we may traverse space, time, and dimensions and enter the realm of paranormal, magic, and ancient folklore. There we go.
Okay, Mike. That was unusual for me to ask a guest to help me out like that. So I really appreciate it. I couldn't see a thing. It sounds fantastic. I'm really excited that you're doing this for us. I'm excited we finally got this going on for our show today. Is there anything else you want to add? And also let everyone know where they can find you, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can find me, MikeRicksecker.com. That's my primary website. Of course, there's connecteduniverseportal.com, which, again, is my online learning platform. Lots of classes. We do weekly classes, and then I have different courses and things out there. A lot of information in the back end, articles, all kinds of videos, and all the Egypt videos out there. The Ireland stuff is going up. There's American Southwest tour that I put up there. So a lot of material. And then, of course, you can find the Shadow Dimension running on Tubi TV.
And also some of your books.
Oh, my books. Yeah, my books are on my personal website. So you can find those MikeRicksecker.com. Yeah.
All right. I love that. And then you can find them, guys, at Portal to Ascension next month for this amazing, exciting paranormal magic folklore event. And I actually think it's one of the first ones that we've been putting on a Portal to Ascension. So that's even more exciting. So I have to thank you for being on, Mike, and for being such a trooper today with me.
Thank you so much, Joan. I really appreciate it.
And you were a problem solver. You actually solved my issue.
We figured it out.
And the tech issue. And so that's a collaborative show. I just so appreciate you. And we will see you next time. Guys, check out go to Portal to Ascension. Tina's putting the links below for everyone. Click it on. Check out Mike. Check out his show. Check out the Alaskan Triangle. And let's find out more about these shadow people. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much. You're with Portal to Ascension.